Garden Success is brought to you in part by The Arbor Gate, featuring unusual plants, artisan-created decorative pieces, and a constantly changing array of items that bring beauty, comfort, and even flavor to the home and garden. Arbor Gate, 15635 FM 2920, Tomball, Texas, 281-351-8851, or arborgate.com.
Garden Success is also brought to you by The Farm Patch, 3519 South College Avenue in Bryan, 979-822-7209.
Welcome to Garden Success with Skip Richter, the show designed to help you have a bountiful garden and a beautiful landscape. Call in now with your lawn and garden questions at 979-845-5689 or email your questions to gardensuccess@tamu.edu. And now, Texas A&M AgriLife Extension horticulturist Skip Richter.
Well, good day and welcome to Garden Success. We're looking forward, as always, today to talking with you about what's going on in your lawn and your garden. This is a perfect gardening weather that we're having right now, and I hope you're enjoying it and getting out there, spending some time in it. Of course, except for Thursdays from 12 to 1 when we're here to answer your gardening questions. If you would like to email us, you can do so at gardensuccess@tamu.edu. And it's good with email to be able to attach a photo. And please do attach them rather than embed them. It makes it easier for me to open and see them. If you want to give us a call, our number is 979-845-5689, 845-5689, or by email at gardensuccess@tamu.edu. So those are your two options, 845-5689. So give us a call. Let's talk about anything you're interested in today. I've been out and about some, looking at different things going on in the landscapes, and we're entering the season when large patch starts to affect, especially our St. Augustine lawns, pretty significantly. This makes the big tan circles in your lawn. Large patch loves a break in the heat temperatures, dropping, with a cold front or something like that, like we're in now, and also it likes moist conditions. So if we get a lot of rain, or if you water your lawn a lot, which at this point in the season you should not be doing for sure. The lawns do not need watering right now. Those two combination, cooler temps and moisture, cause the large patch organism to proliferate. And large patch, some of you may have heard of brown patch in the past. Now the disease that we were calling brown patch, we're referring to as large patch. And there actually still is a brown patch, but it's not what you have in your lawn. Not here in College Station right now. So if that doesn't confuse things totally, let me say the big brown circles patch or big tan circles patch. What happens is the disease infects where the grass blades attach to the runner and kills the grass blades, essentially rotting them off the runner. You grab onto some grass and pull on it, and it just slips right off the runner. That is the characteristics of this disease. When it does that, the grass has no green leaves in an area, and it spreads like as if you threw a match in the yard and a little fire spreads out in your lawn. That's kind of how this disease progresses. So the symptoms tend to be rather circular in nature, not perfect circles, but something like that. And you may have a whole bunch of them in the lawn. Once you see the circles starting, once the disease begins to show up, if you're going to treat, you need to treat right away. This disease is not cured as much as it is prevented. And so, in other words, when you wait until you have a large circle, well, you can spray, and let's say you kill the disease completely. That doesn't change the fact that now you have leafless grass runners or bladeless grass runners in your lawn. So you got this big brown spot. Sometimes they'll start to regreen from the center a little bit if temperatures are mild, but in general you're kind of stuck with ugly until spring when the grass kicks off and puts on new growth again. So it doesn't kill the grass, it just makes it look bad. I don't normally spray for it, but I don't normally have a lot of it. And here's part of the reason why. Number one, I don't overwater my lawn. I don't have a sprinkler going on twice a week or something like that, especially this time of year. I don't over-fertilize my lawns. I feed them enough to keep them healthy, but not to try to get St. Augustine to be emerald green. St. Augustine would rather be, I would say, closer to chartreuse green than emerald green. You can have a nice green lawn. I'm exaggerating there, but the point is, don't push it so hard with fertilizer. It will exacerbate the problem of large patch, and when it appears, it sure shows up well in that nice dark green lawn. So you want to culturally do those things, and you can't control the rainfall, of course, but we sure add insult to injury with all our sprinkler irrigation going on this time of year. The sprays that you can put on, there's a number of them, and I'm not going to recommend brands and things on the air, but there are some fungicides. If you want to email us or email me at the extension office and ask for some suggestions, we can give you some ingredients to go look for. But a good turf fungicide put on ahead of time can prevent the progression of that disease, or even from it showing up at all if you get it on early enough. I'm just seeing a lot of those circles around town, something to think about. We're also still seeing take-all root rot symptoms in the lawns, and that's just almost a year-round thing. This disease, I don't know exactly when it attacks. At one point we were thinking it was more in the fall and in the spring when temperatures were a little bit milder, but you often see the symptoms in summer, and here's why. This disease doesn't rot the leaves off the runner. It doesn't affect the leaves at all. But what it does is kill the roots, hence the name take-all root rot, or sometimes take-all patch. When you kill the roots, if it's this time of year, the grass still looks okay because there's not a lot of demands to pump a lot of water. So if it even has a few living roots that can supply that runner, it holds on. But when we get into warm weather especially, it just collapses fast. And so the root rot is a concern, and there are things we can do for that. Again, there are fungicides that can be used and some other options. But again, I'm not going to go into a long description on the radio on that. You can just give us a call if you think you might have it, and we can help you with that. Well, let me give you the number again. It's 845-5689, and let's stop and go to the phones right now to talk to Kate. Hello, Kate.
Hi. It's that time of year when I should be thinking about putting down some seeds for larkspur. That's all I can think of at the moment. Mm-hmm. And I'm always confused as to the leaves that drop off the trees. Do I need to get those up before I spread the seeds? Or do I spread the seeds in amongst the leaves? And then when do I put mulch on? Can the seeds come up through mulch?
Okay, good questions. I'm assuming this is being done in like a flower bed or a garden, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the answer to both leaves and mulch is no. We mulch to prevent weed seeds from getting sunlight so they sprout and come up and establish. And the mulch of either compost on top or leaves on top will accomplish the same thing by blocking the desirable biennials that you're planting from being able to come up. So let them get up and growing. Once they've established little plants, if you want to do a little mulching around those plants, that's fine. But in general, we don't want to put a mulch down because they won't be able to get light and establish plants that way.
And I'm going to put these seeds down in the next couple of weeks, I think. Isn't November the time?
Actually, you could do it even before now. You can still do it. The idea is to get these things to sprout sometime maybe in October, or it could be November, to form little plants, and then to sit there through the winter while they get a good root down and they're waiting on a change in the temperatures and day length. And when they get that in the spring, they take off growing and they bloom and set seeds and complete their life cycle. That's why we call them biennials. And you mentioned larkspur, but I'm sure people listening are wondering, well, what else is there in that category? And that would be things like poppies. We can also plant sweet peas and have the same kind of thing, where we plant them in the fall. You'll have better plants and better blooms in the spring if you fall plant those. And our beloved bluebonnet is a biennial. So the sooner we get those in, the more chance they have to establish a good little plant before it really gets cold. And then they're kind of on hold until
Aren't
spring.
they going to freeze?
No, the little plants don't. That's why the roadsides are full of bluebonnets every year that didn't freeze, that came up in the fall.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not kidding. Now, okay, last year we had, 7 degrees or something. Fortunately, we had snow cover, which prevented that kind of freeze kill. But if we didn't have snow cover and we had 7 degrees, there'd be some damage, significant damage. But in general winters, no, that's how they grow. That's what a biennial does. All the weeds in your lawn that you deal with in the spring, those are biennials that came up in the fall. Chickweed, henbit, carpetweed, those are all examples of those lawn weeds, clover, that you didn't really notice, but when spring comes and they take off growing, then you notice.
Follow-up question about timing. I just bought some kind of a stargazer lily bulbs. And I don't know, I've always heard about putting them in the refrigerator. I don't know when to plant them. So can you guide me on that?
I'm sorry, I missed. What is it that you're asking about?
Stargazer lily.
Stargazer. Boy,
Well,
that's a good question.
Let me go look at the name. They look like stargazers.
Okay.
But anyway, I don't know if I'm supposed to put them in the fridge, in the garage, in the ground, or where.
They are probably not going to need to be refrigerated. My brain is drawing a blank right now. My first guess is going to be plant the bulbs in the spring. They're not one of your early spring blooming bulbs like daffodils and paper whites, for example, are. They're going to bloom later, so I would wait and plant them in the spring. But I need to probably look into that a little bit. We don't get a lot of stargazer lily questions.
Well, these, I'm looking at the label now. It's Elodie, Elodie. And they're pale pink. To me, I don't know, they look kind of like a stargazer.
Okay, yeah. Well, Elodie is a variety. So that's just a variety of what you're seeing of the stargazer type lilies.
Okay, so they're in the stores now. I don't know why they put them in the stores in the fall if I don't plant them until spring.
Well, you can probably plant them now. Again, I'm hedging a little bit because I don't want to speak something authoritatively that I'm not sure about. My gut feeling is you could hold them and wait and put them in the spring, but we don't have the kind of weather that freezes stuff in the ground here, so you probably are okay planting them now, and then they would just sit there till spring. If it were mine,
Okay.
I'd hold on because they bloom in the summer. So you have plenty of time to establish them and then have them grow.
Okay, thank you much.
All right, good luck. Thanks for that. Let's go back to the phones and talk to Dan. Hey, Dan.
Hi, Skip. I have 2 questions if you have time. The first one is about should I or should I not edge a mulch bed under a live oak tree? Because I noticed on campus every year they go through and put a nice clean edge around it. Mm-hmm. But I was wondering if it's hurtful to the roots.
No, it's not. I mean, you're not going to use your edger to dig 6 inches down in the soil or anything. You're just basically getting barely below the surface of the soil to accomplish the edging task, and that's not a problem. And it's just an aesthetic thing. It's not you don't have to edge around live oaks, but it's more of an aesthetic. It makes things look orderly.
Yeah, I took your advice of, making a nice mulch bed under the trees, mm-hmm. and I was hoping that you would say that so I can help keep the grass from growing into it constantly.
Yeah, edging would be a practical way to do that. You can, and that mulch trees. You know, you think about how trees naturally grow. They naturally grow in a forest where they're around other trees, and the leaves fall on the ground year after year, decomposing, mulching the soil, protecting the soil, moderating soil temperature, releasing nutrients. That's tree heaven. And we bring them into landscapes, and we want to have turf grass right up to the trunk. And that tree is not very happy with that situation, although they can do it. So when you start to give a mulch bed around a tree, you're even improving on the tree's health.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
So my second question is more of a meta question.
Okay.
So for my birthday last month, my wife bought me a aeroponic cloning machine.
Okay.
And
wow.
I'm wondering what I am supposed to do with this.
Okay.
Currently in it, I have some Mexican sagebush. I have some lavender. But when I look online, everybody's always cloning tomatoes and peppers and everything. But with our seasons, by the time it would be big enough to clone, it's too late or too early to plant. So do you have any recommendations on how I should use this thing throughout the year?
So this roots cuttings that you put in it, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So you could time it so that you have transplants at the time you want them. But so here's how this works. Commercially, cuttings are rooted in very loose media like perlite or vermiculite or maybe a little peat in the mix with those, and it depends on the plant as to the best media for that. But it wants to be airy, it wants to hold moisture, but it wants to have good oxygen down in the zone so it roots readily. Now you see online people putting things in water to root, and some plants will root in water, but the kind of roots you develop in that anaerobic situation of water are not the best kind for growing in the soil, and the plant adjusts. You can root things in water and then put them in the soil and they adjust, but it's not best. And this aeroponic system is providing a spray or a mist of moisture, and maybe, I don't know, there's probably some nutrient in it or maybe some rooting hormone. I don't know what all is included. I've never had one of those units. And it's spraying it on the cutting, so the cutting is getting good oxygen down there, but it's being kept continually moist so that as roots develop, they don't just, we say roots burn off in the air. You know, if you let a root dry out in the air, it dies back, and we call that burning off. And but they don't do that, and so it's a great way to root a cutting. But Dan, you're going to want to take them from there and put them in some sort of a potting mix in a container. Like, let's say you did a tomato that way or some other plant that you'd want to transplant. You would then want to be able to grow it out to a good transplant before you put it out in the garden, which will be, you know, probably early to mid-March or early March or mid-March, sometime in there around here. So you just kind of count back in time as to when you would start those.
Great. Awesome. So is there anything you would recommend cloning? Or I was thinking of just walking around my neighborhood and seeing who has nice plants and in the nighttime sneaking a little chunk off.
Okay. Well, either that or bake a pound cake and knock on the door and make them a trade. But I would think about, what do you want? You know, look around, see what does well here. I say driving around, I am constantly plant shopping, you know, seeing what's in yards and what it looks like and stuff. And when you see something you like, well, then you know, okay, that's a plant I want to be able to somewhere get a cutting off of and root. Some plants are very easy to root. Tomatoes, you say the word root and they start popping out roots on the stem. Rosemary, actually, surprisingly enough, is a fairly easy plant to root. Other plants are very difficult to root. The bay trees that we use as evergreen shrubs, but they're herbal bay leaves, they're a challenge to root. And so it kind of depends on the plant. And I might start with, what plants do you want? and then do a little investigating. And if you need to email us or something, we can kind of help you with, okay, that's going to be a challenge. But I've never had the kind of system you have. So kudos to your wife for that, by the way. And honey, if you're listening, that would be a great Christmas gift. Hint, hint. But seriously, I suspect they're going to do very well, and maybe it would stretch your ability to root a little bit. We often dip things that are resistant to rooting in a rooting hormone so that we get faster, better rooting. And perhaps these systems have some of the hormones that are natural plant hormones in the moisture that sprays up there. I need to look into that. I don't know.
We got that separately, and I've been using it.
Okay.
They haven't died yet after 2 weeks. So
right.
that's a good sign.
Well, that's a good sign. When you cut a cutting off, you are severing it from its lifeline. And so the goal is to keep the stress down, the moisture high around the leaves, so it's not pumping a lot of water out because there's nothing to pump water from, and to get roots as fast as you can while it hangs in that suspended state. And if you don't get roots soon enough, you're going to lose the cutting. But if you get them soon, then that's how we have success, and why our yards are full of plants that are rooted from cuttings.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I'll keep you posted how it goes.
All right, Dan. Thank you very much. Appreciate the call. Our number, 845-5689, 845-5689. And let's go back to the phones now and talk to Susan. Hey, Susan.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, I have a question about years ago, I killed the grass on my backyard. I live in a townhome.
Okay.
And I just let the grass go. I planted a tree, and then, I made a little landscape, and I planted some tomatoes, this or that. So anyway, now I want to prepare to plant grass again. Can I just spread seeds there and let it grow?
Yes, if there's any mulch, like a wood chip mulch or ground up leaf mulch or something on the surface, I would rake that off so that the sod that you lay down can come into good close contact with the soil below when you put the sod down.
I don't have anything right now there. Actually, last week I raked all the leaves. Everything was there, so now it's thoroughly clean.
Okay. Well, this is not the best time to plant sod. It's a little better to do it once the weather warms up and grass is actively growing. Your grass plants are not doing a whole lot of rooting in the cool season. We're at the point where root growth is going toward a very minimum right now. And then by the time other people have mowed their lawns twice, it's a good active growing time where you can put the sod out and have success. Now you may lay some out and you may have it survive and things. I won't say it's just all going to die, but
so
it isn't. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you. You're talking. What is sod? I was talking about just spreading seeds.
Well, do you know what kind of grass you want? What?
I here in College Station, whatever is the best, that grows better. Which one is that?
Okay, is this how much sun or shade does this area get?
It gets some sun in part of it during the morning, and then it all day long it gets sun, but it doesn't. It gets some shade too, but it's not always the sun. Always, you know what I mean?
Okay. Well, St. Augustine is our most shade tolerant, and it also does well in sun. St. Augustine grass, you can't plant it by seed. You have to buy the little sections of sod. They look like, the mat you wipe your feet on at the front door. They're small little rectangles that you put on the ground. Zoysia can take quite a bit of shade, not quite as good as St. Augustine, and it is also planted from sod. The only thing that is a practical lawn grass that you might plant from seed would be some types of Bermuda. And it's quite a challenge to successfully establish a uniform stand of Bermuda seed and get it going. And it's not going to like probably the amount of shade that you have there in the lawn. So I'd do St. Augustine or Zoysia, and sod is, I'm going to say it's your only option. It's your only practical option.
So in that case, I was thinking doing now, but so when is the best time to plant by next year?
After your neighbors have mowed their lawn 2 times. Just think of it that way. When it warms up and the grass comes out a little bit, it still doesn't have a good root system, or it has old roots that are kind of dying off as new roots down the runner are being grown. And so by the time you've mowed it twice, it's been warm enough for long enough for the grass to be vigorously and actively growing and new roots developing very well. And so I would do the sod at that time.
So that would have been probably around, I think it's April when they start.
Think about, if you want a date, and every year's different, but if you want a date, I would say sometime in the first half of April would be when I would start sodding.
Sodding. Sodding means
putting down sod. Buying the sod and laying it down on the ground, making sure you press it against the ground so that that little bit of soil that comes in with the grass is touching the ground, so as roots come out, they can go right into the ground and not have an air space underneath them.
Oh, okay. So I actually I'm here at Home Depot thinking my seeds, so it's not a good time to do that. So mid of April, you're thinking.
Early to mid-April. That's when I would do that. And I'm giving you what I think is the best time to do it.
Yeah. Okay, because Texas changes so much. Right now, I thought, it's so hot, and you know what I mean? It's probably got time to plant, but it's not, right?
No, not for our warm season southern turf grasses. Not the best time.
Yeah, and another question is, I love to have rosemary in my bag, but every time I buy rosemary, it dies.
Okay. Rosemary is actually a very tough plant. The 2 things that cause it problems are soggy, wet conditions. If the area doesn't drain really well, especially in the cool season, staying too wet. And the other thing is a lack of sunlight. It wants to be in lots of sun. So if you put it in the shade, it's going to struggle. And if you keep it too moist, or if the area is low where water gathers maybe and it stays wet longer, it's not going to do well there.
Yeah, that's the 2 things that I did wrong.
Okay, well, now you know.
Okay. I appreciate, well, just very quickly, I'll say I used to have a rosemary when I lived in the city in Alexandria, and I planted in the ground. And that plant really grew so big. It had a very big,
Right.
Thick.
Yeah, it's a great plant. It's a great plant.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, thank you. I appreciate that you gave me the answers for my questions.
All right, Susan, thank you for calling.
Okay, see you. Have a nice day.
Yes. Our phone number, 845-5689, 845-5689. If you'd like to call, or by email, you can reach us at gardensuccess@tamu.edu. I want to make a couple of announcements about some things going on in the community. The Post Oak chapter of the Native Plant Society, that Post Oak is our local chapter of Native Plant Society, invites the public to their November meeting on November 4th. That's a Thursday at 6:30 p.m. And the meeting will be via Zoom. Online. It won't be you don't go in person. You go via Zoom, and the link is kind of simple. It's tinyurl.com/frogfruit, and I'll say that again, tinyurl.com/frogfruit, one word. By the way, I love that URL because frogfruit is one of our native ground covers, and so that's a good one for the Native Plant Society. The program on the 4th is going to be November 4th is Composting with Nature. You'll be learning how some of your options for composting and how to take things that were once alive and turn them back into the soil. That's what nature does constantly, and you can learn how to compost yourself. It's from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. on November 4th, and if you're interested in that, you want to go to the website tinyurl.com/frogfruit. The Rio Brazos Audubon Society is inviting the public to their November meeting and program, and that is going to be on November 10th. the Rio Brazos Audubon Society. So if you're interested in birds, attracting birds, observing birds, that's Wednesday, November 10th at 6:30, and it'll also be an online meeting. And the program will be on native plants for birds. Cheryl Lewis, who's president of the Post Oak Native Plant Society, those two groups work together a lot, is going to be the speaker for this. And again, that tinyurl.com is the same, but instead of frog fruit, it's northern cardinal if you want to go to the bird meeting on November 10th at 6:30 p.m. Let's see, we're going to go back to the emails for a moment. I had a question on someone purchased an Arctic Frost Satsuma tree, and they're new to fruit growing, and so they're wondering about advice for planting it in the ground. Should you plant it now or wait till spring? Any other tips for caring for it through the winter and into next spring? Well, that's a good question. Number one, congratulations. I think everybody ought to have a citrus plant. I know some of you are listening thinking, wait a minute, this isn't South Texas. Why are you recommending citrus? Well, there are some hardy citrus types here that we can grow here. One of them is the kumquats. Those are the little things the size of the end of your thumb that the skin is more what you eat than the interior, and they're used in marmalade and things like that. But satsumas are also quite hardy, and Arctic Frost is a good variety to choose. You don't need two varieties. They pollinate themselves. And satsumas, when they're young, are not extremely hardy, but once a tree's been in the ground about 3 years and it's well established, satsumas, if the temperature doesn't just suddenly go from 80 to 30 overnight or 20 overnight, they slowly cool off in the spring or in the winter. Good night in the fall, like we're expecting normally. They can take temperatures down into the mid-20s or even a little bit lower without significant damage. So we can grow them here. And you can they're smaller trees. They're not as large as some of the oranges and things that you see. And those satsumas, can even be covered for the first few years, especially. They don't grow that fast. And so it is a citrus that we can grow here. The main reason I love citrus, in addition to the fruit, of course, is the blooms. They are unbelievably fragrant. I had a little lime tree, which are not hardy, that I'll put mine in a container so I can move it in. But it was blooming 4 or 5 blooms, and I walked by it the other day, and my first thought is, what is that? Where's that wonderful fragrance coming from? And I had kind of forgotten that little gallon pot with a few blooms sitting there. But it's just a reminder that it's worth growing citrus just for the blooms, if much less for the fruit as well. So when do you plant it and how do you take care of it? Well, we're on the edge of citrus growing here, and we only have a few types that we can grow that I mentioned fairly dependably. So that means that winters occasionally can do severe damage to citrus. Of course, the ridiculously cold 7 degrees flat out kills the citrus, but unless you took great measures to protect them. But I normally plant citrus in the spring or summer. Spring is good, but you can plant it in the fall. And any kind of plant that's a perennial type of plant, whether it's perennials like perennial flowers or a shrub or tree, if you plant it in the fall, it has more time to get established. The only caveat is, being a new plant getting established, be a little more careful with protecting it. If it's going to get below 28, for example, even around 28, I would definitely cover it for that cold night and then get the cover off when the temperature comes back up again. You just want to be a little extra careful if you want to plant it now, but that's fine. Citrus needs full sun. Citrus needs good drainage. So if the area doesn't drain well, build up a raised bed or mound for it to grow on. And that way you'll have good drainage. And then moderate fertilizing through the season. That you can use the fertilizers you use for your lawn, just nothing with weed control product in it, just fertilizer. And then keep them adequately moist, but not soggy wet. They don't like to be in a swamp. They wanna have good drainage. So that would be my advice. I think that ought to get you off to a good start. There's some good information on the Aggie Horticulture website. If you go to Aggie-Horticulture, tamu.edu, or just do a search online for Aggie Horticulture. There's a fruit page, and there's all kinds of fruit publications, including some great things on citrus that'll help you along. Well, let's go back to the phones now and talk to Randy. Hello, Randy. Is Randy still there?
I'm here. You hear me?
Hey, now I can hear you. How you doing?
Okay. Doing good. How about yourself?
I'm well, thank you.
All right. I wanted to ask you about, I found some, in containers. I went out to co-op and bought some, what am I trying to say here?
Is it
look at them.
like a...
honeysuckle.
Oh, okay.
Honeysuckle. And my question is that, I've got a light where I can put them inside the garage and, keep them through the winter. That works very well.
Yes.
Or should I go ahead and try to just put them in the ground now and chance the winter? Because they are young.
Yeah.
All my other honeysuckles survived the big freeze.
Yes.
It was fine, but they were established.
Yes.
So
that's okay.
That's my question.
Honeysuckles are adequately hardy. I would plant them now without a doubt. Go ahead and get them in the ground. Give them all that time to get some good roots reaching out into the surrounding soil before next summer heat comes. But yeah, they can take it.
Okay.
That's good.
That was my question.
All right.
I appreciate it.
And then enjoy them. They're a beautiful flower.
Oh, they create I use cattle panel and I put them up and I let them grow on that, so they create a natural barrier, a wall.
Oh, there you go.
And it gets very thick and it keeps it off the fence.
Yes, that's
so it doesn't hang on the fence, but you just put it in front of the fence a few feet, put the cattle panel up, and it just creates a wall.
That's a great idea, Randy, and it reminds me. Sometimes we get calls on what's a good shrub to create a wall and block a view, and there are some shrub options for that, but it takes a while for them to grow, and to get a good even semi-evergreen vine and put it on a panel, that's not very expensive, and you can really quickly have a wall of foliage to block a view that way. That's a good idea.
No, you will, 100%. And and it doesn't take as long as you think.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy them young in the spring, they cover it but not thick, and then by the next growing season, it's thick. I mean, it's a wall. I mean, it covers it up really well. So.
Well, good. Now, is this the coral honeysuckle, the tubular coral-colored blooms, or is this one that has white and pinkish?
It's the hang on, I got the name of them right here. They call them hang on. They create the yellow flower.
Oh, okay.
But this one here, they call it the Hall's honeysuckle.
Oh, Hall's honey. Okay, yeah. It's kind of it's more of a. I think it has a little bit of a golden color to it.
Yeah, golden. That'd be the better way to say it. Yes.
All right.
Exactly.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for that call and good luck with it.
No problem. Thank you very much.
You bet. We're going to go to the phones again, and again the number, if you'd like to call, 845-5689. And let's talk to Greg. Hey, Greg.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I just in a picture, I have 2 Orient pear trees, not in just a little bloom, but in full bloom.
Oh, really?
I mean, see. Not quite the white snowball you might see in the spring, but a lot of blooms.
I see that in your picture. I'm just sitting here looking at it right now. And that is, pear trees are probably the worst plant for doing a fall bloom. If you take a pear and it gets kind of stressed in late summer,
which it did,
going through that stress is almost like a fruit plant going through the winter, and then it comes out, it says it's time to bloom in spring. That stress will do that to pears, and you get a fall bloom, which is, you're not going to have those blooms in spring. Maybe there's a few buds that didn't bloom in fall that'll bloom in spring, but all the blooms you see now were supposed to be for spring, and they won't be there in spring.
Oh, yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's bad, because, I'm used to various fruit trees having a few fall blooms because of some reaction, but this is quite extensive.
Yeah, well,
both of my work there anyway.
There you go. And I can't tell on your photo. One of the things I was trying to see is this really the tree, the variety Orient, or is this something that's sprouting out from the roots?
Well, no, it's an Orient, but the one, if you see all those, that's because I stupidly planted in a pasture and my cows grazed on it, and then I dug it up. This was 13, 14 years ago, and replanted it, and it it came up that, I mean, it really called it regrew from that method. But
Okay.
it should be true. And I have another one that I planted at the same time that was inside the yard, and they produce the same fruit. Very similar to a keeper.
Mm-hmm.
They're a hard pear, but very delicious when they're allowed to ripen or soften. So
Yeah. Good. All right. Well, that's a testimony to pears' toughness.
Only other comment is maybe we'll blame it on the snowmageddon. I also have Fuyu persimmon trees that for the first time, and I've had them now for, I don't know, maybe close to 15 years. I had persimmons ripening in July, and then a couple of more in September, and then whereas normally they all ripen in late October, November.
Yeah.
So, and I certainly suspected there was maybe a blemish or a problem. No, some of them simply ripen months ahead of time.
I don't know what to think of that. It's been a weird year, but the more I learn about plants, the more I recognize the fact that plants can't read. Because if they could read, they would know not to do that. They don't do that, but apparently they can't read. So that's my only explanation.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, Greg. Thank you for the call. Phone number 845-5689, 845-5689, or by email at gardensuccess@tamu.edu. We got about 15 or so minutes left, so if you would like to call today, it'd be better sooner than later, because sometimes at the end we get a whole bunch of calls and can't quite get to them. We'll talk about things going on in the community again. On Thursday, November 4th, also at the Ringer Library, in Bryant, the person in charge of our Junior Master Gardening Program, our International Junior Master Gardening Program here through AgriLife Extension, Extension Program Specialist Lisa Whittlesey is going to be leading a discussion on Garden to Vase. That's the title, Garden to Vase. And Lisa is a magician at taking things from around the yard and garden and putting them together in beautiful decorations. You could go and learn about how to prepare for the holidays or really any time you want to have a gathering at your house. Now it's from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Larry Ringer Public Library in their front meeting room. If you'd like more information, I'm going to give you a phone number. It's 764-3416. 764-3416, and this program is free to the public. November 5th and 6th is the annual Fall Festival of Roses at the Antique Rose Emporium out on Highway 50 in Brenham. You're going to be able to tour their gardens and get a sniff of the roses as well. But this will be going on Friday and Saturday. On Friday in the morning, Georgia Monroe will be talking about growing perennials and annuals that do good here, that are good for cut flower arrangements. Georgia owns Base Camp Farms. If you've never been out to Base Camp, you ought to go sometime. They grow and sell cut flowers out there. You can follow them on social media and find out about their market days and when they have what. But Base Camp's is our local flower grower, and I've been out. It's a beautiful place to go just see the flowers. I think it's really cool. But anyway, that's on Friday morning. Then on Saturday in the morning also, Jane English will be talking about companion planting and also mushrooms. They'll even have a raffle for an inoculated mushroom log. I bet you never heard me say that before. Some mushrooms grow out of wood, and there are certain kinds of mushrooms. Shiitake is an example of that, and there's others that you inoculate the wood with the spores of that mushroom or the strands of the mushroom, and then it grows inside the wood and then pops out the mushrooms, just like those little circles of mushrooms in your yard pop out at certain times under certain conditions. But anyway, you can learn about companion planting and a little bit about mushrooms as well. And those are both out at the Antique Rose Emporium. If you want more information on that, the number is 836-5548. 836-5548. I should say every day when we do this show, every Thursday, I should start off by saying get a pen and paper, because you're probably going to want it today, because we're spewing out all these URLs and phone numbers for you. Well, let's go back to the phones and talk to Will. Hello, Will.
Hello, Skip. My question is, I've got some plant bushes and things, ligustrum and others. We were gone for a while, and some of them have really shot up a lot, and I wanted to do some trimming. Is it too early to start trimming? Or
I would not at this late stage in the season. It's probably going to be warm enough here and there in the next few weeks for them to try to start regrowing from the trimming in response to your trimming. And we got some freezes coming for too long. And that tender new growth won't be hardy and ready for the freeze. I would probably wait until we get toward the end of winter and do that trimming at that time. And then as spring growth comes on, if you pruned heavily in winter, you may have to prune once or twice more because you're going to have a lot of vigorous shoots, and you'll want to top them back so that it becomes bushier and bushier as you go. But for those evergreens and shrubs like ligustrum you mentioned, yeah, I'd hold off at this point.
What about trees? Same thing?
Like a deciduous shade tree or what?
Yes.
Okay. I would prune those in the middle of winter. You know, we get into late January, or mid to late January is a good time. I mean, it's nothing, it has to be right then, but you want the tree to be dormant, and you want to get the pruning wounds that you need to make done and do some investigating to make sure you're making the cuts properly on a plant. It's good for the long-term health and strength of the plant. And we do it then because the fastest period of wound growth is in the spring. And so you do the dormant pruning on those, and then they take off, and the healing, it's actually not healing, it's callus and wound closure, but happens fast. And you want to cover over that interior wood that you expose when you prune off a limb as quickly as possible.
With the natural growth.
With the natural growth, right. No sprays. You don't need to, no pruning paint.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Skip, that's exactly what I needed to find out. I appreciate your help.
Thank you, Will. Thanks for the call.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right. Our number again, 845-5689, 845-5689. Got a little time left. Or by email, gardensuccess@tamu.edu, gardensuccess@tamu.edu. On November 6th is the Saturday Art Market at De Gallery on 930 North Rosemary in Bryan. Not too far from the KBTX TV station, if that gives you kind of an idea. But it's from 9 to 3 p.m., De Gallery. It's the Saturday Art Market. You can come and meet some of the professional visual artists and enjoy some of the paintings and sculptures, photography, jewelry, handcrafted items. There'll be live music and free art workshops for kids. Hey, that sounds fun. And I wonder how old a kid you can be to get in there, because I might want to try that one. A crafting station and also treats for sale, coffee, pastries. Oh my goodness, that's a quite an ordeal. So it sounds wonderful. I think you could spend the whole 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. time there having fun. So friends and families are also welcome. That's the De Gallery, 930 North Rosemary on November 6th, which is Saturday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. We got a lot of things that have been going on around the community here. On October 30th, the Brazos Valley Farmers Market is going to be, that's the one downtown on Main at 21st Street. They're going to have a Halloween event, so you can come and see the vendors in Halloween costumes, maybe even pick up a few treats. Let the kids wear their costumes for the morning, and they can sort of trick or treat around the market there. It's always fun going to farmers markets here locally. It starts Saturday from 8 a.m. and goes all the way to noon. So take advantage of that, support our local growers and crafters and others at the market. Let's go back to the phones now and talk to Eddie. Hello, Eddie.
Hello, Skip. How you doing?
Well, thank you.
Good. Skip, I have a question. We have a house that's east-facing. We're here in College Station, and we have a couple of beds that are kind of bare right now. And I was thinking of acanthus, the bear's breeches.
Uh-huh.
Do they do well in this area, in this climate zone?
They can. Acanthus it likes quite a bit of shade, but it likes a bright shade. So being on the east side of your house, if there's no other things shading it, that kind of sounds like half day sun, half day shade, maybe. So go ahead.
Yeah, we have a couple of decent sized oak trees,
Okay.
and there are some quite tall crepe myrtles that give nice shade to the front of the house.
Gotcha.
And it's irrigation system, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Well, for acanthus, I would, a lot of our soils are heavy clay around here. Not all, but a lot. And so I would create more of a forest floor type soil. Lots of compost mixed in to a large area and plant it and kind of make it feel like it may be in a forested type setting like that. The more you could avoid having to use the tap water, which has quite a bit of sodium in it, on the plant, the better off it would be. I don't know about that particular plant's sodium sensitivity, but I would not expect it to be highly tolerant. So minimizing the irrigating of the plant and letting rainfall, and maybe even if you've got a rain barrel or something, that'd be another good way to water it.
Yeah, no rain barrels, but reliant on the ambient rain or whatever could be a bit dicey. So I think the foliage is just so nice, and it covers quite a wide area.
Yes, it is.
I was just thinking that those big broad leaves would look nice up against a brick wall.
Yeah, it would. That is one of the beautiful plants in areas that you especially see them as you go east and even a little north in Texas. Up toward Tyler area and places like that. They're really thriving.
Excellent. Well, are they locally available?
That's a good question. I do not recall seeing acanthus here in the Bryan College Station area. I would call around and ask, Farm Patch or producers or someplace that sells plants, for example. I'd check them out. I'm pretty sure you could get them if you go down to like Arbor Gate and Tomball, that direction, because they sell a lot because they grow a lot down there. But I would, although it's a fun trip for an outing to go see the place, I would probably call and make sure before I head that way.
Right. Otherwise, we'll get some seed and see what happens.
Well, then you're really going all out. That'll be interesting. I have never grown one from seed. That may be a bit more of a challenge, but hey, it's fun.
Well, in for a penny, in for a pound. So
there you go.
We'll see what happens. Skip, thank you very much. Enjoy the blustery weather today.
I will. Thank you, Eddie. I appreciate that.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. We got 5 minutes left, so let's give you the phone number one more time. It's 845-5689 if you'd like a call before we close out the show today. 845-5689. And we're a little short on email time, so I'll hold off on that. By the way, out in the garden, this is just still prime time for a lot of cool season plants. So if you got a vegetable garden, you want to go ahead and make sure you're getting your stuff established, because you want it to do some growing before it really cools off. Even things that are fairly cold hardy, you have better production if you can get some good early growth on them before it cools off so much. Well, let's go back to the phones and talk to Pat. Hello, Pat.
Hi, Skip.
Yes.
Did your office move?
We did. What
Does that mean for the demonstration garden?
It goes on. Our master gardeners are continuing to take care of it and do education out there. We had a whole bunch of kiddos out a while back from youth gardeners that came out into an educational event there. So we're still utilizing it, but the office itself is not there. Our office is right behind the county tax office, for those of you who've been to the tax office.
That's what I heard. So who is in the old building?
Nobody. It's
Okay.
vacant now. There's going to be some changes around there with the county, in terms of the building, but our garden is going forward for the foreseeable future.
Well, that is really good news.
Yeah.
And when is the right time to plant plum trees?
Well, if a lot of times people purchase their fruit bare root, And the time to do
Right.
that is midwinter. January would be a good time.
Midwinter, if bare root.
If bare root. If they're container grown, it doesn't matter. And I would probably plant them in the fall. But just make sure when you
Okay.
pull it out of the container, there's going to be roots going in a circle around that container. And you want to cut those in about 3 or 4 places around the circle of that cylinder. Everywhere you cut a root, it's going to produce new roots within a few weeks, and they're going to move out into the surrounding soil. That circling root isn't going to unwind underground, and it doesn't
Right.
doesn't do the tree any good if you just pull it out of the container and stick it in the ground. So now would be a great time. Now all through November. It is a good time to plant a container plant. Again, for the same reason I mentioned earlier, and that's it has a lot of time for roots to establish before the hot weather arrives.
We'll do it. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Now, I just have to add one thing, Pat. You mentioned a plum tree.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of our plums are not self-fruitful. They need pollinating from a different variety. Some of them will produce on their own, but you just might want to check on that.
Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, you don't want it to join the Lonely Hearts Club in your yard.
No.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Skip.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Pat.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, my goodness. Let's see. We were talking vegetables just before that last call. Let's say a few more things about those. Spinach it loves cool weather, and now's a great time to plant spinach. I usually put the seeds in a glass of very warm water at night, the day before I'm going to plant, just so they can start soaking up moisture. Speeds germination just a little bit. Root crops like radishes and turnips and carrots can all be planted now. It's a great time for that. In fact, we're in the big middle of carrot planting season. And then those blue-leafed vegetables like collards, cabbage, kohlrabi, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, I'm trying to name them all here. All of those like to be planted in the fall. And again, you could be planting those way back in mid-September, but you want to go ahead and get them in now because it's going to cool off a whole lot. And you want to build a good robust plant can produce a lot of the parts of the plant that we eat, which is different on each of those plants. So you want to make sure that they have time to really grow and do well before it gets too cold on them. There are other things that could be put out in the gardens, but those are the primary ones. Some people, will gamble a little bit with chard and beets and things like that, but those are not freeze hardy, and so we want to avoid that. If you got multiplying onions that you want to plant, this would be still a good time to go ahead and get those in the ground. Let's see what in the lawns. I mentioned that we want to deal with things like brown patch at this point in the season if it's been a perennial problem. Mentioned that earlier in the show. But as far as fertilizing, we are getting to the end of the fertilizing season. You could put some down, but as I mentioned earlier, it's better to get the fertilizers in, let's say early October and maybe mid-October. But if you haven't fertilized and your lawn hasn't been doing well, you might want to go ahead and do that right away because root growth is starting to go downhill at this point. Well, you've been listening to Garden Success. We're here every Thursday from 12 to 1. Tell your neighbors about it, and we'll look forward to talking to you next week.
You've been listening to Garden Success with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension horticulturist Skip Richter. Join us again next week as Skip discusses your questions about gardening and landscaping in the Brazos Valley.
Garden Success is brought to you in part by the Arbor Gate, featuring unusual plants, artisan-created decorative pieces, and a constantly changing array of items that bring beauty, comfort, and even flavor to the home and garden. Arbor Gate, 15635 FM 2920, Tomball, Texas, 281-351-8851 or arborgate.com.
Garden Success is also brought to you by The Farm Patch, 3519 South College Avenue in Bryan, 979-822-7209.